everyone, I'm Nannerl. Shane and I'd like to express our sincerest condolences to the victims of the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting, which occurred earlier this week. As most of you know, Shane has previously published a copy of Might Is Right, which has no longer been in circuit since 2016. Let me repeat that. Might Is Right is no longer published by Shane Bugbee or Mike Hunt Publishing. Because this controversial book has been quoted by the shooter of the shooting, I believe that it's important to have a conversation about this. This conversation happened when recording an episode for Season 2. We were discussing Shane's experiences as a publisher. We decided to release this part of the episode early on its own as Shane reflects on how he feels about the book being co-opted by the alt-right circles and why he no longer publishes it. Thank you for listening.
I want to mention, actually, it's a good time to do so. You published Might Is Right, and recently, more specifically, the ass end of July, which feels like was the worst retrograde in, ever.
Yeah.
Just came to a head, and that zip popped all over the place because there was a tragic shooting. And in the news, Might Is Right was mentioned because the perpetrator, well, there were two of them, and I guess one didn't get caught, the other one committed suicide. The one who shot himself, that perp, he had quoted Might Is Right as one of his favorite books and all these different things that just brought all over again the media trying to find something besides guns to blame. And I'm not saying this as a statement for or against guns. I'm just saying our media likes to find a scapegoat when it's a kid who's white passing. And Might Is Right suddenly was in the news again. I want to say that Kevin Slaughter of COS is the most recent publisher of this. You are no longer a publisher of Might Is Right? Or is
Right.
This? Okay.
That's true.
Okay. So it's interesting how, one, good for you that you didn't get suddenly targeted by the world as, oh my God, you monster, you caused this to happen. But at the same time, this is a good example of not once have I heard you tell me, oh, hell no, I did not publish this book. No, I didn't publish it. Or anything like that due to this shooting. You know you published it. You own up to it. And we've had some interesting conversations about just that, what it is. And how do you feel about the existence of it coming back all of a sudden?
Well, you can say there's a most recent publisher, but before me, there was one person who had put it out, which was Loom Panics.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very rare book to find. I published it with Anton LaVey, and a actual white supremacist, George Eric Hawthorne. I didn't publish it with them, but I used them as the afterword and forward. So when I published it, no one was publishing it. And much like the Mike Diana books, I made sure it sold. I made sure it got publicity. I went up to I forget what it's called, the LeBode department or something like that in Upper Michigan. It's a college that had the original manuscript for Might Is Right. It's from the University of Chicago. And I studied it. I studied it thoroughly. And LaVey gave us his opinion. He thought Jack London was one of the authors. And when I went up to this Detroit department, the professor there felt LaVey might be right. And he showed me a bunch of Jack London's socialist writings, and they were very much like Might Is Right. So Kevin Slaughter publishes it because I gave it life. And most people who publish it now publish it because of the life I gave it. And I don't say that as a brag. I say that as an explanation to the heavy emotions I felt when I took it off sale in 2016 after Trump won the election. I thought I would keep that book in publication for the rest of my life. That would be the one book I would always republish. And After I saw it being misinterpreted in 2016, I was like, oh, fuck. And I thought about when I first met LaVey, the first thing he did when he walked into his den where the altar was, sitting on his couch. He walks in and waves that book at me. Bugby, Bugby, Bugby. Do you realize what you put out here? This is pure dynamite, kid. You don't even realize what you're doing, do you? And I said, what am I doing? I'm putting out a book. He goes, you're putting out pure dynamite on the streets. This is going to change things, kid. And he put that book down. And to see the way it's going, in 2016, I was like, I need to redirect this somehow. I need to figure out a way to talk with my heart and not my anger, to publish with my heart and not my anger. And so I took it off sale, even though knowing right there, I was like, this is one of those moments where, well, I can't get credit for Internet Archive. I can't get credit for anything else I've done. I know someone who'll embrace me. I can get embraced by the fucking alt-right. I could be publishing this all day long and making money. And I thought about it right there. And I was like, it's just not my heart. And I can't believe, for me, when I published that book, it was for the downtrodden, the Palestinians, let's say, the people who were getting beaten on. It was to tell them the secrets of life. It was such a hard book for me to read. When I first went through it, it was hurt my feelings constantly. It was like, oh my goodness, this is me. Oh my goodness, this is, and I published it for historic reasons because LaVey riffed off it to make the Satanic Bible. I published it for a lot of reasons. And back in the day, Michael and Publishing, me as the Michael and Publishing at 25 years ago, hell, when this shooting would have happened, I would have it on sale. I'd be taking out ads everywhere going, yeah, that's my book, baby. Come to me with all the controversy. I would accept it. And in 2016, after I took it off sale, which is real weird, the Pope mentioned it and Obama mentioned it. And when that happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm so fucked. I am fucked as a human being. No one's ever going to want me again. No one's going to deal with me. This is fucked. And when they mentioned it, the young person in me was happy. Like the kid from back in the day I thought about, I was like, that would be me. I'd be having a picture of Obama in an ad and quoting him, might is not right. And the Pope saying it the week earlier, a week after, because Trump is a person who lives by that doctrine. And so he rules by that doctrine. And so for me, it was important to get away from it. And not because I'm afraid of the controversy. I have 25 years of controversy. I mean, it's not like I shook hands with the white supremacist or something and I can get away from that and, disavow it or something. I put out the rape issue. I put out heavy books back in my day, books that were unapologetic and hate-filled and all that. And so it's just because that's not where my politics reside. That's not what I'm about. I'm a Bernie Sanders fan. I'm about people being taken care of. I'm about a reasonable, and people, a lot of these people are like a lot of Satanists are libertarians at heart. And I don't think they understand the concept of privilege yet and stuff like that. So I always thought like, if you're ever going to try to do the concept of libertarianism, you'd need to implement, 8 generations of socialism first. You really have to give people a chance to get a foot up and see where the lazy bastards lie. Like, hey, you've had 80 years to take an education. Your family's had all this time. You've had all the health care you could swallow, all the college you could swallow. I guess at that point you can find the weak and the strong. I'm not sure even though if with that, but I know that I just wasn't comfortable having anything to do with that shit anymore. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate the philosophy of Satanism. I just see things differently. I see things as less of an individual construct and more of a we're all one construct within occultism. We're the all, not the one. And until you find your place within the all, you can't be the individual that you aspire to be. It's the backwards with Satanism. They believe in taking care of number one first. And I believe in fitting into the all. What's your place? Are you a violinist? Are you, who are you? What are you? Are you a musician? Are you a sculptor? Are you a plumber? Once you fit into the all, you can figure out the self. Anyway,
I think it's
sorry to
been
ramble.
backwards lately. And I think that the might is right is a really hard pill to swallow. And I can understand how it got corrupted by people with very corrupt and dangerous ideas. But it doesn't mean that the book is wrong for everyone, and it doesn't mean it's necessarily a book that's bad for society.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
if a killer read The Very Hungry Caterpillar and quoted that as his favorite book, it doesn't mean we're going to cut that out. Look how many people have been killed by the Bible.
I was going to say, as you've mentioned, Satanism is a very young religion. And so with the books that founded we're going to find our fanatics now.
Yes.
And these are our fanatics. Just like the Bible has abortion doctors being shot all the time. People are fanatics, shoot up abortion clinics, stuff like that. So it's like, or Planned Parenthood, what, a year ago was shot up. So the Christian faith has a lot of fanatics, and Satanism is going to have their share of fanatics. It does not make a book a bad thing to me either. It's just a book. It's an individual perception on the book is not my as a publisher. How do I feel about someone shooting up the place, or how do I feel about people interpreting books I put out in any which way? I have run the gamut of emotions, but I've been able to think about this for 30 years, and there's no reasonable thought that I can come across that I can take responsibility for each individual's interpretation of what they read. It's so complex. How could I know your interpretation? That's for you to work out, not me. I'm just putting out a book. So that's how I see that.
I think that the forward and afterward of your copy is something that when people come after you, either verbally or on the internet, I think they need to also take a look at, yes, LaVey is the forward and the afterword is done by George Birdie, but that's his other name, right?
That's his real name, yes.
Okay. And you should probably also think about that detail there. It sort of it doesn't neutralize any problematic issues that the book might have, but like we've talked about in private, I almost interpret it like the gang truce that happened during the LA riots. Yeah. It's the red and blue bandanas tied together.
When I did that, it's funny because when I did that, I'm a person who likes to juxtapose things in my art, everything. It's like put the opposites together,
Your
let
aesthetic.
them clash. Yeah, that's my aesthetic. Let me show you. And I'll tell you, I got death threats from Nazis, and they'd sign it and put their social security number on there. And then the Satanists would send me curses. We're going to curse you. So I enjoyed all the hate mail I was getting. I just loved it. And I'd get phone calls, and I just loved I can't tell you how much I loved the death threats and the curses back then. It was just such a thrill to be noticed, as a young, invisible, poor guy. So it was cool. I liked publishing the book, and I liked my experiences with it. And I see, I like that I was progressive enough to know to take it off sale when I did. I'm glad I'm not selling it right now when that has happened. Because it's just not who and what I am. I'm just not into that. I'm not into the controversy. I'm not into defending that book really, or I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I'm just happy that I don't have it under my wing right now.
I respect that. I really appreciate that you can own up to that too.
I don't know
Satanists,
how can you not
exactly.
how can you not as a person, you know, like I didn't do anything to hide.
No.
All my stuff is like, I'm a life artist, so everything I did, my painting's done when I'm dead. So people get to make their decisions then. Right now, I don't know what to say, you know. But that's just one aspect of my. Well, here, have I ever told you about the anarchist book fair when I put out Might Is Right?
Yes, you did. How
Oh,
you were
on
there with
recording?
LeVay,
Yeah,
and
okay.
the
Right.
anarchists saw
Okay.
that this is not dangerous.
Well, they saw it and
Well,
they were
it's
against
not
Might
white
Is.
supremacist, is what I
Yeah,
mean. Sorry.
yeah, they saw it on the table and they saw the collection of work that I did, the full body of work that I did.
Hmm.
And they were like, oh, this guy couldn't be a white supremacist. This other stuff would get you beaten to hell by a Nazi. So, you know, obviously this guy just is looking to make trouble. And they're right.
Well, here's something. Did the white supremacists that you encountered 20 plus years ago find you as someone who lacked pretense also?
Yes, they welcomed me in and we went up to Canada, saw the Rahowa concert. They were kind to me. And I was happy to be there to observe. As I always taken myself as a journalist because you know that's what the state's attorney of Illinois that put Gacy down called me, a journalist. People call me a journalist, so I take it. I like it. That's who I am. Like, I'm inquisitive. So being there, it was neat to see like how they were treated, how we were treated just going to the concert, how Canadians treated us, how the cops treated us, how they walked, how the cops tried to provoke violence. It was wild because they would walk interracial couples right by the front door of the venue. And they were like undercover cops and they were with the cops and stuff. So they kept walking back and forth trying to get these white supremacists to run out of the building. And it was sort of funny because inside there'd be like the pipsqueak of the whole group. I'm going to go out there and kill them. And they're all holding them back.
There's
And
always that guy in those groups, too. And he's like, okay, if everyone was an animal in that circumstance, I always imagine white supremacists to be like bull terrier type dogs or something like that. Maybe like white pit bulls with their full tail and blue eyes or something. And that one dude is like the little albino mouse.
Yeah. Right. Trying to prove himself or whatever.
My
It was just
power!
it was weird. We were at a VFW hall and they were serving up like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and like little cut up sandwiches.
White bread only.
White bread. It was funny. It was so, I don't know. It was an experience. Not something I went to again. I didn't keep going, but it was, I don't know. It was neat to see as a journalist. Like, it was neat to be invited in and not be beat. I was worried to shit. Like, I thought most journalists that go into those situations get their ass handed to them. Like, they get beaten up. They're like, oh, they got me in a hotel room and knocked my teeth out. So I went up there afraid. I left afraid, but I survived and didn't get beaten up. Yes, that's true. And it's not like I was like up there undercover going, Sieg Heil. I told them I'm not into this. You know, they knew.
But you also didn't fight their beliefs in front of their circles and make them feel unsafe in their own circles.
Well, no, I was there as a guest.
Right.
So like same as the Native Americans or anyone else. If I'm there as a guest, I just observe and report. That's my job as an artist, as a documentarian, as a journalist, whatever you want to put on me.
As a Satanist, if you enter their
and,
lair, you can't shit on them.
Yeah, they'll destroy me. Right, that too. Exactly. But as a professional artist, I observe and I report. I observe and I document. I observe and I tell the story. I don't go in there. I have a bias, but in general, I just have a curiosity. Like, what is this? I want to find out the truth. It was funny when I started taking ads from those people. It was for the Milwaukee Metal Fest program book, and this white supremacist group offers me all this money for advertising. I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? All of my white friends said, oh, you can't take it. It's dangerous, all this stuff. So Dina Weinstein, she's a professor at DePaul University, and she was a writer for my magazine. I asked her, happens to be Jewish. And she said, you have to take the ad. And I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, yes, if you don't, you give them too much power. And so I asked my black friend who was doing the cover, what do I do here? And he's like, you have to take the ad. If you don't, you give him too much power. And he's like, I'm going to make a special ad. I'm going to make a special cover for the magazine. So he made sure to make a mulatto, he said, or a half breed, black, made sure to put a person with dreadlocks. So the cover has this, what the artist said was a mixed breed, a black and white person with dreadlocks on the cover of it. And so we have a white supremacist ad inside it. And, so that's what happens. But the after result is that I knew a guy there, and he's like, I joined the KKK because of all that. And so there's the other side of it where I was like, oh my God, as a publisher, I'm like feeling the responsibility of being a publisher. Like, I was like, Andy, Andy had such a big heart. He was a really kind person, but dumb as shit. Of course, he joined the KKK. He's looking for a reason to blame for his low end life. Like, no money. And it's not even his fault. He was born into it. He wasn't lucky. Didn't have the luck of birth. So there is something about publishing that stuff. It does influence people, and I realized that in my older age. That's one of the reasons I took Might Is Right off sale too. I wasn't looking to influence people in that direction. But Michael on Publishing started as an anti-censorship thing, when I did my first zine, Naked Aggression, it was all about that. So that's the heart of it.
While publishing and just putting out media in general, it's getting harder and harder to censor something because things aren't on conventional television or publishing circuits the same way. It's interesting that the censorship comes out in social networking now. People sort of decide to maybe not hive, but just almost like gang approach, where they have to bully someone to take something down, cancel it, things like that. And I can see how this could attract a little bit of cancel culture, but at the same time, hearing back from people regarding Might Is Right, or seeing subtle, nods toward your involvement publishing Might Is Right, saying things like Might Is Not Right, which I understand what you're trying to say by saying might is not right, but it's turning into the all lives matter of statements on the internet this week. But seeing all that, is it sort of reminiscent of back when you did publish it? Is it sort of the same comments, just from different people?
No, these people are ignorant. Back when I published it, we didn't have the internet, so not every ignorant person did not have a mouthpiece. So when I published it, I was publishing it to people who liked books, who were intellectuals, who understood what a book was, and not someone who was looking to climb on top of a book to have their ignorant say. I guess if when I look at some of that stuff and they're name calling and they're belittling, they're trying to be belittling, that is basically Might Is Right. That is the same kind of thing. The opposite of Might Is Right is like compassion and understanding, or trying to understand. I remember having an argument about the rebel flag being taken down, the first one that was taken down 5 years ago or so. And I had an argument, I was opposed to it. And because the people were reasonable, rational, intellectual, they slowly built an argument with me, and I argued with them for a week. They tried to understand my side of things. They asked me questions. And at some point, about a week later, I was like, holy shit, you've totally changed my mind. You're right. They should be taken down. And that's a big deal coming from a person who's a free speech advocate and free express, all this stuff. It was a big deal. But they were able to do that because they understood the idea. They were firmly rooted in their politics, where a lot of these people who are yammering on about being anti-Might Is Right are just looking to have their own forum or they're just looking to be popular. They're heard.
It's a virtue signal.
Yeah, something, I don't know what that exactly is because it's a new phrase, but they're just becoming part of what the group think versus going, let's try to understand the reasons this was put out, or the age it was put out, or the time it was put out, or let's put this into context. They just want to yell about something that's going to get attention.
Because
It's
they
not,
want to get you also. They want to argue with someone, and it's a big trophy to cut off your head.
I guess, I agree with that, but it's like, I think comes down to something you've said before. What have you done?
Hmm.
It's going to take a lot. You're going to have a sword to cut my head off. And without much more than internet yammering as accomplishment, well, I'm not really going to pay you too much mind. It's like, don't pay, like most people in a professional artist ilk, we don't pay attention to the comments. We just make our art. You know what I mean? And so if we pay attention to the comments, it's just to sell a book. It's like when Cardi B is on Twitter and she pays attention to some of her comments, she retweets them, she argues with people here and there, but it all serves her. It all benefits her. If you're really emotional or something like that, you just don't pay attention to the comments. If I tried to comment with someone and they deleted a comment, so I just blocked them all. I was like, fuck it. But it was by my grace, my generosity that I was actually commenting to them. I was looking, and I don't mean to say I'm looking down on them, but I was definitely like, let me give these kids a hand. Let me see if they actually want to talk about this in a reasonable, intellectual way. And oh well, for them. I mean, I've had the conversation about Might is Right with Anton LaVey. I've had the conversation with Might is Right with the best of them, and those people aren't going to have that conversation with me. It's
Even your
their loss.
conversation about Might with the worst of them. Did everyone forget that Doug did the illustrations in your copy of Might is Right? And why aren't they coming at him about this?
I sometimes go ahead.
Oh, no.
I sometimes think it's because of education, class, and I'm overweight, and I think those things play a large part in people's biases. As I saw when some of these comments, these flabby, I saw a couple times call me fat or flabby, and that is a projection of why I'm discounted often. Often people that look different are in the margins, whether they're a person of color or they're fat. And so I think a lot of what's held me back in my success is being overweight. Now, hey, let me tell you, this is trauma fat, okay? I'm not that lazy of a person. It's trauma fat, but anyway.
You should publish your tuxedo photo in your About Me section of the podcast.
Why?
I don't know.
Because I look different? Okay. Well, I'll do that. I need to get some nice photos taken. But
let's make an alter account for Shane called Chubby Stamos, and we'll use the tuxedo picture of you.
I love that.
The last point I wanted to make about because I could rail on and on about this, and I do want to come back to an earlier point about your early days before we wrap it up, is that I don't understand. Here's my last statement regarding it, is that I don't understand how people cannot pick and choose the context of one book, yet they quote Shakespeare and all these other pieces of literature that are older than Might is Right, that have anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, classism, all these different things, but they're okay with those ones. And they say, oh, well, it was a different time. Or they're into musicals like South Pacific that, don't get me started about how they portray Asian women as objects and how fucking racist the fucking main female character is about the half Asian children. And by the way, high school play, South Pacific's Tonkin people should not look like Hawaiians. They're a little more like Vietnamese people, but I digress. How can you pick and choose things from literature and other medium that you like, but something that you know nothing about, you decide that that's problematic?
Well, I think outside of my personal stuff, I think that it's a typical thing I've dealt with for 30 years now. They're just fake intellectuals. They're wannabes. They're not actually thinking about what they're doing. And it's just what I said. They're looking to be in the herd mentality. I often wonder because I came from such severe abuse, if that doesn't carry through in my words and my art, and people just naturally see this as, oh, this person has been picked on, so we can pick on them too. I'm not really sure. I've always wondered why I've been the target of such, from abuse from my parents to being picked on in high school.
I can go with that. Coming from marginalized people, sometimes puts a target on someone's back, or it's an easy way for people who are otherwise weak in conventional culture amongst people outside of their circle. They're usually the ones kicked around, and they decided, oh, here's my chance to get mine. So they decide that the person unfamiliar to the circle, the new person, or just the easy target is easy to kick around because A, you're the easy target. B, no one's going to suspect that they're bullying you, because why would you kick around this type of person that's controversial? So they're kind of being slick by doing so.
Yeah, well, slick or just showing, like for me, they just fit into the bigger 99%, let's say. And I'm talking about not in the wealth game, but like I find my group with intellectuals. I find my group with people who can handle the conversation and can try to have a thirst for understanding, and understand that we live in nuanced, circumstantial, individual existence. And when you understand that as a human being, and you try to live you try to accept people as, wow, this person is nuanced, circumstantial, and individual. So when they cut me off in traffic, maybe you're not so angry at them. It helps you out with your own well-being, because maybe you're like, oh, maybe they had a hard day. Maybe they were just fired. Maybe there's a death in their family. Maybe they just broke a foot. Why is this person being an asshole versus this person is an asshole? There's a difference between this person is an asshole or why is this person being an asshole? And most people, I think, these are the people who are, in the respects of might is right, these are the people who are into a philosophy who is, almost like live and let live type of, almost. But they're very judgmental. They're very cop-like.
Might is a feeling after the act of survival, not tangible, and is a fleeting moment based in luck. Might is a feeling that drives a need for power and is often confused with strength. Might has never existed in the tusk, but in the elephant's huge fucking brain. Might is right and dominance and submission versus way of life and freedom and intelligence.